Hello everyone, welcome you all to my online class of software engineering. The classical waterfall model or any other model that is used to document such as model must not only have the diagrammatic representation but have the entry and exit criteria. What are the methodologies that are used in a different phases? That is how the activities are carried out: specification, design, testing. What are the activities in that and how they are carried out? And also, what are the output that is produced in every phase so that we call as the process model. And the process model, we say that every good organization documents it is process model and gives it to all the developers. And the new developers need to master the development process before they can start developing software. Let's look at the different stages very briefly. What sort of activities take place just to understand the activities? The first activity in the classical waterfall model is the feasibility study. In the feasibility study, there are three main aspects that are determined that whether the software that to be developed in is economically feasible, that is whether the development effort and the cost that will be spent on developing software is it worth it. It is also called as the cost benefit analysis. Technical feasibility, that is whether the developing organization has the technical competence required to develop the software. For example, some software that is being undertaken to develop may requires, let's say, satellite communication, and the team members do not know how to use satellite communication. Write program for satellite communication? Of course, they will say that it is infeasible for them, technically infeasible. The third feasibility that needs to be determined during the feasibility study stage is scheduled feasibility. The time that the customer requires the product to be delivered, can the development complete by that time? So, during the feasibility study typically undertaken, these activities are undertaken by the project manager. He needs to determine three types of feasibility: whether it is cost wise feasible, the benefit will be much more than the cost incurred, the technical feasibility, whether it can be done, and the scheduled feasibility, whether it is can be done in a time. Whether the software will be financially worthwhile, whether it is technically feasible, whether it can be done with the timeline. But let's see how exactly the feasibility study can be carried out. The first thing is to roughly understand what are the requirements of the software. So, that is the first step: understand what the customer wants. And to understand what the customer wants, we need to understand what are the features of the software. That is, what sort of data will be input, what is the volume of this data, what is the processing that need to be done on this data, and this is basically becomes the code to retain, and what are the output to be produced by the system, and then what are the various constraints and the behavior of the system. For example, whether backup needs to be kept, whether the downtime requirement is very high, and so on. whether the data to be input from different locations of the company and so on. So these are the different constraints, and once the requirements are understood, then the project manager like to find out. Thank you.